So Wes Anderson makes movies for white people. Now that sounds kind of harsh, but it's actually not all that much of a bad thing. You see, creators are always making something for a certain demographic. Tyler Perry makes movies for black people.
My audience and the stories that I tell are African American stories specific to a certain audience, specific to a certain group of people that I know that I grew up with, and we speak a language.
Chespirito makes comedies for Latino people.
Entonces, sí pertenece desde luego a ese contexto de muchos lugares, sobre todo de América Latina, en que hay muchos niños desvalidos, pero lo quise hacer de una manera positiva.
Which is to be expected. When you write on your own personal experience, it'll appeal to people similar to you. However, it should also come as no surprise that people outside of that demographic may not connect with the stuff as much. And that kind of encapsulates how I feel about Wes Anderson films. Recently, I took a class on significant cinema directors, and as a result, I've seen all of Wes Anderson's films. Upon various discussions, I've realized that my thoughts on his films may not align with the general opinion of them. So I figured I would document my thoughts on them on a Wes Anderson ranked video. And when I say I've seen all of his films, I do mean all of them. We're going to start off with his first short film, So this isn't just the debut of Wes Anderson, but also that of Owen and Luke Wilson. It follows the story of three Texas teenagers, Anthony, Dignan, and Bob, as they go around committing small acts of crime and being general misfits. The film is heavily influenced by the 400 Blows, in that it has the same character dynamics, and even just borrows some shots outright. This short shows that Wes Anderson has had a talent for writing weird and flawed characters, and the cinematography is a good baseline for what would become his signature style later on. It's an alright short, there's nothing really memorable about it for me. However, my personal opinion aside, this actually went on to do really well at film festivals, particularly at Sundance. It caught the eye of producers who financed a feature film version of the short. So mad respect to Wes Anderson there. I can't say the same thing about my short film.
Whoa! Fuck, that's thick.
However, now Wes Anderson has money, and I assume complete control over his feature film. So now I don't feel too bad being a little harsh towards it, which this movie's got quite a few problems. So the first act of this movie is actually really good. It follows the same general plot as the short film, but more expanded upon and refined. The cinematography is better, the acting is improved. Also, the music is great, heavily jazz inspired, and it fits the tone of the film very well. The writing is much more realistic and even genuinely funny at times.
It's true, Dignan. I paid for the gun. Say it again. Say it one more time. Say it again. Repeat what you just said. I paid for the gun. He's out. You're out too. And I don't think I'm in either. No gang!
I'd argue that the best part about this movie is actually the first act. That sounds like a good thing, but it's actually not when you look into it. This film essentially peaks in the first act. There are two more acts after this. So Act 2 begins with the gang on the run after they rob a bookstore. They stay at a motel where Anthony falls in love with a cleaning lady named Inez. This romance is probably the worst thing about this movie. It reads like a really bad fanfiction with the naive immigrant falling for the charming American man. It's not a terrible concept, but the way Wes Anderson presents it is terrible. Inez is not just naive, she's borderline stupid at times. We learn next to nothing about Inez, and the things that we do learn are just used as a joke. Take for instance this scene. Anthony mistakes Inez's locket as a picture of her when she was a kid, but it actually turns out it's her sister from another country. Realizing his mistake, Anthony asks her for it, and she just gives it to him.
Can I keep it anyway?
Listen, I know it's played as a joke, but why? By the end of the second act, the gang leaves the motel. Anthony asks her to come with them, which she refuses, claiming that he is irresponsible and not very mature. That's actually a really good way to end this romance. It plays into the themes of the movie really well. However, in Act 3, Anthony calls her again, and she takes him back. My textbook claims Inez to be a strong female character, however, this decision shows me the opposite. Why would Inez take him back when, by her perspective, he hasn't changed at all? I'm ragging on this romance a lot because it takes place in the second act of the movie. It makes it feel like the longest portion of the film, even if it may not be, according to runtime. The characters and actors have no chemistry at all. Inez can't even communicate well, so they don't have any meaningful conversation ever. I have no reason to be interested in what's going on, and so I just zone out of the movie. Which is a shame, it started off so strong. Act 3 is not as good as Act 1, however, it does lead up to a very fun final heist and a very satisfying conclusion, once again mimicking the 400 Blows. Once again, it's an alright film. It has its high points and its low points. Personal opinion aside, this actually went through really well critically and financially. I'm just kidding, no, it bombed at the box office. This film had over 80 walkouts, making it one of the worst for Columbia Pictures. The reception was so bad, it changed its fall release date to one in February, where all the shitty movies are released. And to make matters worse, Sundance didn't even accept the film, even though that's where the short film found most of its success. If I was Wes Anderson, I probably would have quit filmmaking at that point, which, on that note, Owen Wilson almost quit acting because of the reception. So my textbook actually explains why this film didn't do so well. By saying, when the feature film version of Bottle Rocket was released in 1996, few people understood it. This is because the idiom in which Wes Anderson was working was so unique that it had no precedent, and audiences simply did not understand the film's style of humor. I mean, to be fair, you gotta have a high IQ to understand Wes Anderson films. I definitely disagree. In fact, I have my own theory as to why this didn't do so hot upon release. This movie attempts to be a heist, romantic comedy, buddy road trip, coming-of-age movie, but doesn't excel at any genre. As a result, it kind of makes it feel really messy and disorganized, and even fans of the film might agree with me. So, not a great start for Wes Anderson, but he did persevere through and make another movie. So, this is the movie where most people believe Wes Anderson finally found his footing and established himself as a big boy director. So, do I agree? No. Yeah, that one might be a little controversial. I'll start with what I like about the movie first. In terms of technical aspects, it's a huge improvement over Bottle Rocket. The cinematography has much more purpose to it. Once again, borrowed heavily from the 400 Blows. His unique transitions would also become a staple of his filmography from here on. So I enjoy most of the technical aspects of this film, however, it's the plot where I kind of lose interest. I don't like harping on a film's story all that much, but when I'm not engaged with it, it affects my enjoyment of the film. You see, the plot revolves around a love triangle between the characters Max Fisher, Herman Blum, and Rosemary Cross. Out of all these characters, we most focus on Max Fisher, who, for me, is probably the most insufferable character in any Wes Anderson film. Max is a very narcissistic asshole throughout the entire movie, and the movie wants me to empathize with him, and I just don't. I never feel like Max earns any of the forgiveness he's given. Also, the weird romance between the underage student Max Fisher and his teacher Miss Cross lends to some really uncomfortable scenes. So the first weird scene is the one where Max tries to force a kiss on Miss Cross. It's a scene that has not aged very well at all.
It's too late.
Now, that one isn't actually all that bad compared to this next one. In this scene, Max has faked a bicycle crash, has gained the pity of Miss Cross, and has been able to manipulate his way into her home. After some weird dialogue, they actually share a kiss. Which, may I remind you, the underage student is kissing his adult teacher. Now, I'm of the opinion you can actually show whatever you want in your film, no matter how taboo it is. However, context and purpose are two big factors in how I will react to them. Going back to my textbook on Wes Anderson, the book says, when Max climbs through the young teacher's bedroom window, with blood on his face, claiming to have been hit by a car while riding his bicycle, the audience is somehow truly rooting for him, so not to be caught in the lie. When the lie is determined, the viewer is somehow just as crushed as Max. I actually brought up that line during a class discussion, and literally every single person in that class disagreed with that line. If the purpose of the scene is to empathize with Max, I'm sorry, Wes Anderson, you failed there. And that's my biggest gripe with this movie. I don't really empathize with any character aside from maybe Miss Cross. And even then, Miss Cross is always forgiving Max and Herman when she really shouldn't. It gets really frustrating, like, stop. These people are manipulating you. I can see why people enjoy this movie, I just can't get through it without rolling my eyes at the back of my head. I'm also not the biggest fan of coming-of-age films, so this isn't really doing anything for me. Wow, Henry, you must be a Wes Anderson hater. I'm glad you said that, because now we go into his third feature film. Fuck yes! Finally, a good Wes Anderson film. It took him long enough. If it wasn't obvious already, I do really love the Royal Tenenbaums. Unlike his previous films, I'm really invested into these characters, which is actually kind of strange considering this has the most amount of characters in it. These characters feel the most relatable out of any of his work thus far. The colors are more vibrant than anything he'd worked on before, and the story is just comfy, endearing, and overall just really fun. And the cinematography. There are so many great shots in this movie. Some of my favorite scenes come from the Royal Tenenbaums. The Green Line bus scene is something I will die for. So Wes Anderson made a pretty good movie. Hopefully he keeps this energy and keeps putting out bangers after bangers after bangers. God damn it. It's the Life Aquatic. Hooray! Listen, I've been a little negative on some of his films. However, I can kind of see why people enjoy them. They're actually really good movies. I just don't connect with them all that much. But the Life Aquatic is just, I don't understand. This probably is the most polarizing movie Wes Anderson has made. The people who love it absolutely love it, and the people who hate it, hate it. It's fairly obvious what I think about this movie. It's bad. Like I said, I can see the appeal in some of the films I don't like. There is just something within them that may appeal to certain people that are not me. However, the Life Aquatic, I don't get it. So the Life Aquatic follows the character Steve Zissou, who is a parody of the real-life person Jacques Cousteau. He ventures out to find a creature that killed his fishing partner, and along the way he meets his long-lost son, Ned Plimpton. I'm gonna be honest, this movie kind of bores me. Alright, I'm being an asshole, let's go over what I do like about this movie. So like I said, Steve Zissou is a parody of Jacques Cousteau. There are segments in the movie that parody Jacques Cousteau's documentary style. It's really well done and even funny too. Cousteau is actually a really eccentric character. He infamously threw dynamite into an ocean during his research of fish. Instead of doing anything fun with that idea, we instead follow the melodrama of a father-son feud. So contrary to what you may believe, I actually do kind of like Wes Anderson's style. That's because there's always a purpose to the symmetry, the transitions, the colors. The style isn't just for show, it adds layers to scenes. The one aspect I have a problem with is the wooden dialogue that he has throughout a lot of his films. I cannot understand his fixation with this kind of weird speech patterns. Bill Murray, I may be your son. Huh. Interesting. If someone can explain that to me, that'd be awesome. Because I cannot for the life of me figure out why. And surprise, surprise, the love triangle between Ned, Steve, and the pregnant reporter chick does not interest me at all. Quite honestly, this feels like a Wes Anderson parody made by somebody who doesn't like Wes Anderson, except it's a real movie by him. I'm not really getting too much into like the plot or like the fine details of the film because, quite honestly, it's one of the only films by him that I just don't care. And just like every great Wes Anderson movie, this one tanked horribly. I hate to end on a negative note, but I'm gonna end it there. I want to space these out a little more. I don't want to put them all into one video. I feel like it'll be like half an hour long and no one wants to see me for that long. There are also some films that I haven't seen in years and I didn't get to see for the class, so I want to give those a rewatch before I make the next part. So yeah, that's it.